Members and guests will please rise as we're led in prayer by the chaplain, to be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our truth for today comes from Psalm 130, verse 7. Hear, O peoples, hope in the Lord, for with the Lord there is loving kindness, and with him there is abundant redemption. Let us pray. O Lord, our blessed Father, it is only because of the loving kindness of the Lord that we are not consumed, for his mercies never fail. For who is a God like you, pardoning sins, transgressions, and iniquities? St. Augustine reminds us that our hearts are restless until they find their rest in you. You are faithful. Your faithfulness is new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. Let the wicked forsake his ways, and the unrighteous man his thoughts. Let him return to the Lord, and he will have compassion on him, for he will abundantly pardon. Our hearts long for, anticipate God's presence and intervention. We may end this day with an expectation of things to come. However, let us all remember that our governing authorities are determined and installed by God. We must remember that there is no authority except from God, and those which exist are established by God. Even our elected officials are ministers of God for us for good. We pray that our hearts seek you and rejoice in you this day. Seek the Lord in his strength, seek his face continually, for great is the Lord and greatly to be praised. Amen.
When roll call period, all members please record your presence.
Welcome to State House Today. I'm Gavin Jackson here live in the State House lobby. It is Thursday, May 14th, 2026. It indeed is Sine Die, which is Latin for without a day. However, we know that we will be with more days going forward because the governor will be calling lawmakers back into a special session probably as soon as 5:01 p.m. today. We do know from both the House and Senate majority leaders that they will be coming back. They both confirmed on the record yesterday that the governor has been in contact with them and will be reaching out to call them back. We heard from House Majority Leader Davey Hyatt yesterday saying that the House will be back at 10 a.m. on Friday to start the process of redistricting. This is a move that's been moving, that we've been talking about for the past week. And of course, with the Senate not being able to pass their sine die resolution, including that redistricting move, the governor had to do this himself, and he's moving this executive authority forward, something we didn't expect him to do, and neither did lawmakers until just recently. Of course, yesterday finding out about this, changing some plans for lawmakers who were expecting to be out of session, and then just taking up conference committee reports, the budget, and vetoes going forward. But of course, everything has changed in the past week with this new momentum to start redistricting the 7 congressional districts in our state to make the map not a 6-1 Republican-Democratic advantage, but a 7-0 sweep for Republicans by trying to get rid of 6th District Congressman Jim Clyburn's Democratic district. Of course, there's been a lot of controversy over this map and this entire process, as there has been no public input on the map that's been proposed right now, and early voting starts in person on May 26th, as well as thousands of ballots that have already been sent overseas and absentee domestically, with hundreds being returned. There's a lot of confusion as to what this might mean for the elections across the state, with the commission director telling House Judiciary Subcommittee recently that it could spell trouble. It's hard to say exactly what this is going to look like, but the legislation moving through the House right now would postpone primaries for Congress until August. So if things move, that's what it's looking like. But again, we heard from Davey Hyatt yesterday saying that the deadline for him and the Senate would be May 26th, with early in-person voting starting, which really doesn't give much wiggle room for things to happen. He said that he expects lawmakers in the House to be back on not only Friday, but Monday and Tuesday as well. He said it will be something like he's never seen before, and he's been through several redistrictings. But of course, those have gone through a more thorough vetting process with massive public input, with hearings across the state, with a lot of hearings both here as well when you're talking to map makers, experts, and a lot of advocates and just the public about how they would want to see their congressional maps made up. That has not been the case whatsoever in this move. Of course, we've seen this map handed down from Washington, which has rubbed a lot of lawmakers the wrong way, specifically in the Senate, where we saw those 5 Republicans join the 12 Democrats in blocking that sine die resolution, which was led by Senate Majority Leader Shane Massey. Of course, he said that was up for all of his members to vote the way they wanted to, but we did see several other prominent ones align with him, saying that they didn't want to be told what to do from Washington. They weren't sure that this map would actually become a 7-0 map for Republicans, as well as it could motivate Democratic voters to turn out in numbers they haven't seen before. So a lot of unknowns that we know right now, and still a lot we don't know. So there's going to be a huge process going forward that will be hard to say where it goes, but they are, of course, in the House trying to make sure that they get that map over to the Senate by at least Tuesday or Wednesday of next week, at which point we don't really know what the Senate's going to do. We have heard from Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Luke Rankin, who voted in favor of that sine die resolution, saying that he wants a process on this. They have gone through the process, a thorough process in the past when it comes to making these new maps. Of course, this has all been expedited ever since that the U.S. Supreme Court decision, Louisiana versus Calais, which ruled that Louisiana's congressional map was a racial gerrymander, unlike South Carolina's, which the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled as a partisan gerrymander. Two different things. We've heard over and over again that our map is as constitutional as it can get. It's about as good as it can get, is what some people are saying too, but that's not stopping folks from trying to get a 7-0 sweep. And we also talked with House Freedom Caucus Chairman Jordan Pace yesterday, briefly after session, and he said it's about time we're doing this. Republicans have had a supermajority in both chambers now since 2024, and it's about time they start acting like it, is what he's saying. He's heard from his constituents they want to see this move forward. Remember back to February when there was a subcommittee in the House that had a hearing on a new map, and it was about an hour-long subcommittee, and that hearing went nowhere. Now here we are months later, and he says we could have done this back then. It's hard to say that would have actually been the move, because we had been asking House and Senate leadership about redistricting since the start of session, and there was zero appetite to do so. Maybe because they've seen the possible maps that show that it's a very difficult way to get to 7-0. So a lot going on there too. But again, going back to the Senate, they will get the House's version of the map next week. And again, we don't really know what they'll do with that, possibly have a thorough vetting process. But they are known as the deliberative body for a reason, because they like to take their time. But then you start really pushing up against the calendar, because guess what next weekend is? Memorial Day. They won't be back on Monday, possibly. They shouldn't be. It's a state holiday, but you never know how things are going to shake out with that going on. And then you'll come back and we'll be right there in front of the early voting deadline on the 26th. So hard to say what this all means for folks who have already cast their ballot. Do they just not count the congressional races that people have already voted in? Will there be signs at election places that say don't cast your ballot for the congressional district on this primary ballot. It's hard to say. We're going to get some clarity more and more in the coming days from the Elections Commission on what this could look like if we actually get to the point where we see a new map in place before May 26th. And again, we've heard from election officials saying that this could spell disaster, would not be necessarily reliable election data if they had to change the ballots right now on thousands of machines that have already been set, programmed, and tested and ready to go for the June 9th primaries, as well as in-person voting on May 26th. So a lot to see what's going to happen. We're still very skittish on the details, skittish on what the map could look like. Again, lawmakers in the House, when they get back tomorrow, they're going to start talking about this process. Over the weekend, they're going to start working with staff on developing a new map or their version of a map, and they're going to start proposing amendments. And we did, again, like I said, I talked to House Freedom Caucus Chairman Jordan Pace, and he said he's pretty happy with the way the map looks and those margins. He's not concerned like Senator Shane Massey is about possibly losing some seats or making them more competitive for Democrats, and he's not worried about that. So he's a pretty big vote of confidence on that, but we do expect to see a lot of amendments, a lot of long discussions, possibly some pretty fiery testimony, some debate, I should say, on the floor. We heard from, again, House Majority Leader Davey Hyatt saying that he hopes everyone remains respectful. It's kind of bad if he's already issuing that disclaimer on the debate, but it will be something to see. Must-watch TV on SCE TV, if you will. We'll be covering that, of course, as well as on the Gavel. We'll be giving you all those updates because it will be a very fast and furious process with a lot of unknowns, and we're going to be very hesitant to really drill down or confirm anything when it comes to these maps and how they're decided. Even from Monday to Tuesday, we expect things to change, just like we've seen everything change day by day in this entire process. Again, with the governor expected to call those lawmakers back into session starting tomorrow. We could see that come out as early as 5:01 p.m. today after they all gavel out Sine Die. So that being said, there's still plenty of stuff to go through on the calendars. We talked to Senate Majority Leader Shane Massey yesterday, and he said they are in a very good spot concerning everything that they've been dealing with. They went through a lot of stuff on the calendars, both Tuesday and Wednesday. And he said there's about 80 gubernatorial appointments that they have to take up. So that could be a lot of time-consuming process for them. But again, we all know that they're going to be until 5 p.m. today. So they have plenty of time to work through things. And again, the big fireworks will be taking place after they gavel at Sine Die at 5 p.m. going forward in this special session, which we haven't seen in some time too. So it'll be quite something to watch. I wish my co-host was here with me, Mayan Schechter, but she's recovering from having her baby last Friday, and he's doing well from what we've heard. So we're still rooting for all of them and waiting to see all the good news that comes from that. But we'll be covering this from the Gavel. She's been tweeting as well as helping me out with the Gavel, no doubt, because there's been a lot going on. We've been having press conferences like yesterday. We also had that ceremonial groundbreaking for the Robert Smalls Monument out here on the State House grounds. So a lot happening, as well as that Murdoch decision being overturned, that conviction being overturned by the state Supreme Court yesterday too. So that throws a whole bunch of not ammo on this fire, but just ammo and fire and attention on South Carolina on the national stage. I have plenty of people texting me saying, what's going on? Well, when it rains, it pours here, and it certainly is pouring right now. So that being said, both the House and Senate have gaveled in. I think we're going to go ahead and jump over to the House, and we'll be going back and forth between both chambers throughout the day. It's going to be a very, very busy day. We're going to be seeing a lot of bills going back and forth, really trying to get in under that deadline at 5 p.m. But of course, you know, they'll be coming back, so they got some wiggle room here too if things don't go their way today, but we still expect to see a very, very busy day in both the House and the Senate. So with that being said, I also want to give you a little update for Friday night at 7:30 on This Week in South Carolina, where we continue our conversations with the candidates, including Representative Jermaine Johnson. He's a Richland Democrat who is running for the Democratic gubernatorial nomination. He's one of 3 Democrats in that June 9th race. We have an interview with him. And of course, you'll be seeing the Democrats on the debate stage on ETV on June 3rd at 7 p.m. So put that on your calendar, as well as the Republicans on June 1st at 7 p.m. and the Attorney General candidates for the Republican nomination on May 27th at 7 p.m. So a lot of things we'll be doing, a lot of things happening ahead of June 9th in the primary, including possibly a new congressional map. Who knows? We're going to find out when you find out. Also on This Week in South Carolina on Friday, we have Scott Huffman, Winthrop University political science professor, really breaking down and analyzing this entire movement that we've been seeing over the past week. Scott gives us some really great analysis and context for what's happening up here at the State House when it comes to these new maps and what it could mean for Republicans and Democrats going forward, not only in the June 9th primaries, but in the midterms this fall. So a lot to look into, a lot of great information that we have on ETV on Friday at 7:30. So check that out. But with that being said, we got more to cover up here, and we're going to send you over to the House right now. And we'll be back tomorrow for our special session coverage, exclusive special session coverage of what the House will be doing on these congressional district maps. We'll see you then. And now we send you to the House.
Go ahead.
House is returned to the Senate with Senate amendments amended. H 3021. This bill enacts the Small Business Regulatory Freedom Act by adding a section to the code so as to provide for the Small Business Regulatory Review Committee that shall conduct an initial review of regulations pending reauthorization.
Senator from Charleston, Senator Campson, what purpose do you rise?
Mr. President, I move that we non-concur in that agreement.
Senator from Charleston, Senator Campson, what purpose do you rise?
Unanimous consent to waive the printing.
Is there motion to waive the printing? All in favor of the motion to waive the printing, say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Senator from Berkeley, Senator Grooms, what purpose do you rise?
May I ask the reading clerk to read that again?
I ask the reading clerk to republish.
3021. Bill enacts the Small Business Regulatory Freedom Act by adding a section to the code, provide that the Small Business Regulatory Review Committee shall conduct an initial review of regulations pending reauthorization.
The printing has been waived on the bill. Senator from Orangeburg, what purpose do you rise?
Could we now ask unanimous consent to take it up and non-concur? You want to know.
Reading clerk, Senator from Spartanburg, what purpose do you rise?
We'll call on the concurrence.
Well, that's
waiting
not
for that
before
point.
us. That bill is not before us now. We're still in the box. Senator from Richland, Senator Walker, what purpose do you rise?
Unanimous consent request, Mr. President.
State your request.
Wish to be recognized for a brief introduction.
You're recognized for the purposes of introduction.
That for those members who once served in the armed services or in law enforcement to join me at the well.
Senate is so informed other members of the armed services join them at the well. Senator from Richland, Senator Walker, for the purposes of introduction.
Members of the Senate, today we have the honor of introducing a phenomenal public servant and an American patriot. Police Chief Curtis Singleton. Chief Singleton, stand please. Retired from law enforcement after 25 years of service on April 8th, 2024. He started out as a detention center officer for the Aiken County Sheriff's Department. He would eventually work his way up in the field, holding the ranks of corporal, sergeant, and lieutenant over the course of his time at the Department of Public Safety, Mental Health Division, and the City of Forest Acres Police Department. Chief Singleton reached the pinnacle of his career in law enforcement when he was selected as the Chief of Police for the City of Chester. He is also a recipient of the Life Saving Award, a recognition of his heroic actions in preserving life and placing the safety of others above his own. Additionally, Chief Singleton is a proud combat veteran. He served our nation and state gallantly as a member of the U.S. Army and the South Carolina Army National Guard, including service during Operation Iraqi Freedom. Chief Singleton is the recipient of numerous honors and awards for his military service, including the Army Achievement Medal, South Carolina Governor's Unit Citation, the National Defense Service Medal, the Global War on Terrorism Expeditionary and Service Medals, the Armed Forces Reserve Medal, and the Army Service Medal. And while he is retired, Chief Singleton continues to serve the community via his appointment to various boards and involvement with multiple civic organizations. And one of his civic duties was volunteering for Teen Walker's successful Senate campaign back in 2024. So he's partially responsible, for my service here in the South Carolina State Senate. He's also joined by his lovely wife, Brittany Singleton, his children, Jackson and Olivia, as well as other family members who are here to support him this morning. Chief, we thank you for your outstanding service to the nation, the state, and the community. And Mr. President, at this time, I would ask that the reading clerk read the title of the resolution, please.
Reading clerk will publish the title of the resolution.
This is a Senate resolution to honor and recognize Curtis M. Singleton for 25 years of dedicated and distinguished service to law enforcement in the state of South Carolina, for his honorable military service, and for his continued commitment to public safety, advocacy, community leadership, and mentorship.
The resolution has been unanimously adopted by the Senate. Senator from Richland.
Thank you. And Mr. President, at this time, I would ask that the entire body join us in giving a resounding welcome and thank you to Chief Singleton for his outstanding military service as well as service in law enforcement.
Chief, thank you for your service. We're grateful to you. Thank you, Senator from Richland and others. Continue to be in the box. Ask the reading clerk to continue to read.
The House has returned to the Senate with Senate amendments amended H. 3195. This bill amends the code relating to standards for physical activity and physical education in kindergarten through 8th grade so as to require certain mandatory minimum periods for physical education and outdoor recess in 4-year-old kindergarten through the 8th grade.
Senator from Horry, Senator Hembry, what purpose do you rise, sir?
I have a unanimous consent request.
State your request.
Unanimous consent to concur with the House amendments to the recess bill, or 3195.
Is there objection to the unanimous consent request that we concur with House amendments? Correct? That's your unanimous consent request. Is there objection? Senator from Collinton, what purpose you rise?
Request an explanation of what the difference, what we're concurring to.
Senator from...
Yield for questions. Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for the question. It's merely a wording change. It in no way changed anything substantively to the bill. So it was really just they preferred one set of words to another. I know Senator from Kershaw has been kind of following this issue, and I know he's had a chance to review it as well.
Is there objection to the unanimous consent request? Hearing no objection, so ordered. The Senate has concurred with House amendments to the bill. Reading clerk will continue to read.
The Clarendon County delegation has reported favorable the reappointment of a Clarendon County magistrate, the Honorable Angela D. Witherspoon of Manning.
Question is confirmation of the Clarendon County magistrate. All in favor would say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The individual is confirmed from Clarendon County magistrate. The reading clerk will continue to read.
Williamsburg County delegation reports favorable reappointment of a Williamsburg County magistrate, the Honorable Martin Ira Eastler of Kingstree.
The question is confirmation of the Williamsburg County magistrate. All in favor will say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Williamsburg County magistrate is confirmed as well. The desk is clear. Are there requests for local bills? Senator from Kershaw, what purpose do you ask, sir?
You have a consent to go to H5653, which is a local bill regarding Lee County Board of Education.
Question is, under uncontested third reading local bills, H5653, correct?
Yes, sir.
All in favor would say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. That bill is given a third reading of the Senate. Are there further requests? Senator from Florence, what purpose do you rise, sir?
President, unanimous consent to go back to H5641, an uncontested local third reading bill.
Yes, sir.
Unanimous consent for third reading.
Unanimous consent request for third reading. Is there objection to the unanimous consent request to give H 5641 under the category of uncontested local third reading bills a third reading? Is there objection? Here, no objection. So ordered. The bill is ordered and given a third reading of the Senate. Senator from Dorchester, what purpose do you rise, sir?
Mr. President, parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Just curious if this is a appropriate time for point of personal interest for the 250th. Today's 250th.
We've not started on the calendar yet, so yes, sir, you're recognized for the point of personal interest. Senator from Dorchester, up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning, members. I stand here with the
maybe the final 250th recognition for at least the regular legislative session. As we stand here on the final day, or what I thought was going to be the final day anyway, I thought it was appropriate that we discuss the British last day in South Carolina. On December 14th, 1782, the British evacuated Charleston. For South Carolina, this was not merely the end of an occupation, it was vindication. It was the moment when the last major British foothold in the South finally slipped away, and the long struggle for independence, sacrifice, and self-government came into full view along the Cooper and Ashley rivers. Today, when Americans think of the Revolutionary War, oftentimes their minds often drift northward to Lexington and Concord and Saratoga and Yorktown. Yet historians now widely acknowledge what the truth that South Carolinians have long known. The American Revolution may have begun in Massachusetts, but it was won in South Carolina. Nowhere was that struggle more bitter, more personal, or more consequential than right here. By the time the British evacuated Charleston in 1782, the state had endured nearly every imaginable hardship. Charleston had fallen in 1780 in what remains, or at least remained, the single largest surrender of American troops until the Civil War. Thousands were captured, families were divided, plantations were burned, neighbors became enemies. South Carolina quite literally descended into a civil war within the revolution itself. And yet, even after Charleston fell, the spirit of resistance did not. Francis Marion, Thomas Sumter, Andrew Pickens, Henry Lighthorse Harry Lee, and the countless unnamed militiamen waged a relentless war of attrition against the British and loyalist forces across swamps, rivers, and backcountry roads, as we have heard through stories that we have all shared with one another over the past several months. The British expected South Carolina to return gratefully to the crown. Instead, they found a people who became harder to subdue the longer they occupied them. In fact, one British officer reportedly lamented that controlling South Carolina was like holding a wolf by the ears. Why? Because South Carolina had developed something deeper than opposition to a particular tax or policy. They had developed a culture of resistance to distant power, imposing its will on local communities. The Southern campaign hardened that instinct. Men here watched royal officials dictate terms from afar. They watched outside authorities attempt to reorder local government, commerce, property, even the personal allegiances. They saw what happened when decisions affecting their homes and their families were made by people insulated from the consequences of those decisions. And after years of occupation and confiscation, military rule and coercion, South Carolinians emerged with a deeply rooted suspicion of concentrated power. Whether exercised by a king, an ocean away, or later by any far-removed central authority, convinced it knew better that the people closest to the matter at hand. The spirit became part of the political DNA of the South. Not hostility to union, not rejection of a national purpose, but a persistent belief that free people govern best when government remains closest and most accountable to them. Even after the victory of Yorktown in October 1781, the British still occupied Charleston for more than a year. Why? Because Charleston mattered. It was one of the wealthiest and most strategically important ports in North America, and the British did not want to surrender it lightly. So when evacuation finally came in December 1782, it was a moment of extraordinary symbolism. Charlestonians awoke that December morning not to the thunder of battle, but to the sight of British sails preparing to disappear beyond the harbor. an image that many surely believe they might never live to see. British troops boarded ships and departed Charleston Harbor while General Nathanael Greene and Patriot forces prepared to re-enter the city. Imagine that scene, the same harbor through which British power had flowed, now witnessing its retreat. One fascinating detail often overlooked is that the evacuation was not only military, it was human in nature. Thousands of loyalists fled with the British, many never to return. Equally significant, thousands of formerly enslaved people also departed with British forces because the Crown had promised them freedom to those who opposed the Patriots and aided the British cause. That reality reminds us that the Revolution was not simple. It wasn't noble in its ideals, yes, but deeply complicated in its human consequences. Another intriguing fact that many years afterwards, Charlestonians celebrated December 14th as Victory Day. Parades and speeches and military displays, church bells and public commemorations marked the occasion. In many ways, it was Charleston's own Independence Day. And perhaps it should be again, because the evacuation of Charleston represented more than military success, it represented endurance. South Carolina suffered immensely during the Revolution. Some estimates suggest more battles and skirmishes occurred in this state than anywhere else in the colonies. Homes were destroyed, commerce collapsed, entire communities were scarred for generations. Yet from those hardships emerged something enduring, that fierce commitment to self-government, local liberty, and independence from a distant authority. There's a reason the spirit of liberty took such deep root here. South Carolinians had paid deeply for it, and that sacrifice mattered not only for our state, but for the nation itself. Had the British succeeded in pacifying the South, had they fully subdued South Carolina and secured the Carolinas and Georgia, the Revolution may well have failed. The Southern campaign drained British resources, shattered British assumptions, and ultimately helped set the stage for Yorktown and the final victory. Yet in many respects, Charleston's evacuation was the final acknowledgement that the American experiment would survive. But it also left behind a permanent warning woven into the character of South Carolina. Again, concentrated power, no matter how confident it is in its righteousness, should never become too comfortable assuming obedience from free people miles away. Today, as we remember this extraordinary moment, we should do so not merely with nostalgia, but with gratitude. Gratitude for those who endured occupation, for those who fought in the swamps and the fields few Americans today could name, for those who sacrificed fortunes, comfort, safety, and in many cases, their lives. And perhaps most importantly, gratitude that they believe liberty was worth the cost. Because history teaches us something important about freedom. It's rarely preserved by those seeking ease. It is preserved by those willing to endure hardship in defense of principle. South Carolina's role in the Revolution stands as an endearing proof of that truth. So thank you all for participating in these remembrances. And may we always remain worthy stewards of the liberty that they secured. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you for those excellent remarks. Senator from Chester, what purpose do you rise?
Unanimous consent.
State your request.
That the words of the senator from Berkeley, I believe, be
Dorchester
be added to the journal.
Is there objection to the words from the senator from Dorchester being placed in the journal? Hearing no objection, so ordered. We'll proceed now to statewide third reading go to the bottom of page 5, bottom of page 5 on the calendar. H4709. We have an amendment on the desk. Pursuant to previous motion, that amendment will be in order. Reading clerk will publish the amendment.
Amendment is by Senator Sutton, amends the bill in section 1. It's in section 1135-5350. It adds a subsection to read.
Senator from Berkeley, Senator Grooms, what purpose do you rise?
To be heard on the amendment.
You're recognized on the amendment. Why he comes, Senator from Pickens, why he comes to the podium, what purpose do you rise?
Member,
Senator from Orangeburg, what purpose do you rise?
Unanimous consent request.
State your request.
There is an amendment on the desk by the Senator from Charleston that I had incorporated into another amendment that was adopted, so I'm going to ask unanimous consent to, this one's already been taken up in context of another amendment. I'm asked to take this one down.
Withdraw the amendment. Is there objection to the unanimous consent request by the Senator from Orangeburg to withdraw the amendment? Hearing no objection, so ordered. I think that's. No further amendments. Senator from Berkeley, Senator Grooms is recognized on the bill.
members, before us we have an amended bill, and United States Congress passed the Buy American Act. And in part of the Buy American Act, it says that the federal government and funding from the federal government, if you have a public works project, then you must use American-made steel. The steel industry in the United States has suffered greatly over several decades with foreign imports from India and China. Those countries are able to manipulate their currencies, able to manipulate their steel industry to undercut production in the United States. And believe it or not, South Carolina is one of our country's largest steel producers. We produce a lot of steel. This bill would require state entities, public works projects in South Carolina that are funded through appropriated dollars to also use American-made steel. The federal government's doing it, and this bill proposes that we do it here in South Carolina. There's no requirements on private industry, on private facilities, but if it's a public facility, something that the state of South Carolina would appropriate dollars for, or something that a local government, such as a school district, would appropriate dollars for, they must incorporate into that project American-made steel.
Senator from Pickens, what purpose do you rise?
See if Senator will yield for
Senator,
a question.
yield for a question. Senator, yields for a question.
Can you tell me, as a contractor, what are the reporting requirements on this?
A public entity that would propose to build a project would have a procurement officer. And in the contract for building that public project, let's say if it's a school district, when the bids go out, there would be a requirement to all the contractors that would want to bid that they must use American-made steel.
Do they have to certify that back?
They would have to certify that the steel that they use when they bid on a project would be American-made steel.
Is there a trigger point where if the steel costs too much, that they would not have to do that?
Yes, there are exceptions. Well, on a bidding of a project, let's say it's just a school, you're bidding on a school, the contractors that would bid on it would have to certify that they would be using American-made steel. Now, now the procurement officer that's contracting from the public entity that's contracting for this public project, if it's determined that using American steel would cause the total project to exceed 25% of what was originally projected for that project. If using American steel would cause that project to increase by 25%, then there's an exception. You'll be able to use other steel.
That's the project cost, not the cost of the steel. So in an example where the project might be $1 million project, and the steel was $100,000, the steel would have to go up to $350,000 before that would become an issue?
It's the total project. If the total project costs were to exceed 25% because of using U.S. steel, then there would be an exemption.
I've got an issue with that. I think that it ought to be based on the steel cost, not the project cost, because you don't know how much the steel is of the project. Can you carry this over till we can get an amendment up for that?
Well, Senator, in other states, they've been able to adopt it like this. And part of the procurement process, that's when you put all the numbers together from your bids and everything else to see what the total project cost will be. And only then would you understand if it's going to be more than 25%. And to be able to take components, individual components within individual bids, and then add them all up to see if the steel itself would exceed the cost, that would be very difficult for a procurement officer. The procurement officer that's bidding out or contracting for an entire facility would want to see the total cost. But in their breakdown, Senator, of the total project cost, it's not broken down granularly into the individual components, such as how much, what the steel would be for this segment, the steel would be for this segment. They would bid the project based on the total cost. That's why it becomes very, very difficult to break out just one component of the total cost of a public project.
So the answer to my question is that you're not willing to carry it over to get an amendment up. Mr. President, object to the bill.
Senator from Pickens.
Object to the bill.
Objection is heard. We go down to page 6 on the calendar, top of the page, H4000. Reading clerk will please read.
The bill amending the code relating to persons entitled to be licensees or permittees so as to add performing arts and convention complexes.
Senator from York, Senator Johnson, what purpose do you rise?
Move to carry over.
Motion is to carry over H4000. All in favor would say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. That bill is carried over. Further on page 6, H4544. Reading clerk will please publish.
Which one's proposed, Agnes?
You won't carry it over. Senator from York, Senator Johnson, what purpose do you rise?
Move to carry over 4544.
Motion is to carry over H4544. All in favor would say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. That bill is carried over. We go to page 7, H4670. Senator from York, Senator Johnson, what purpose do you rise?
Move to carry over.
Motion is to carry over H4670. All in favor would say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. That bill is carried over. Now go to the top of page 8. H5120. Reading clerk will please read.
The bill relating to confidentiality of juvenile records so as to clarify when notice about the disposition of a case against a child charged with certain offenses must be provided to a school principal.
Question is, third reading of H5120. All in favor would say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. That bill is given a third reading. We continue on page 8, bottom of the page, H 4591.
Amendment on the desk, Mr. President.
Have an amendment on the desk. Publish the amendment.
Amendments by Senator Johnson. Amends the bill, Section 2, by striking Section 39.5, 930, subsection B, Item 2, and inserting.
Mr. President.
Senator from York, Senator Johnson, what purpose do you rise? We're on page 8, bottom of the page, H 4591.
To explain the amendment.
You're recognized on your amendment. Senator from York, Senator Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. For those of you who recall, we began the debate yesterday on the Shazam bill. Ultimately, what this bill is trying to do is trying to protect children. It's trying to hold social media companies accountable for their bad acts, or really, they're just neglect. At the subcommittee hearing, I was fortunate enough, the chairman of LCI, Senator Davis, allowed me to serve on that committee, and Meta testified. And I forget, it's Net something, some large group, it's Google, it's all the major companies, it's everybody you think of when you think of social media. Their lobbyists, the head of their group testified. And one of the things she said was, we can tell you how old you are. We can look at the data. We know how old you are. We feel very, very confident. We always know how old you are. And we can protect these. We can protect you. We can protect the children. But actually, they stopped short of saying children. They said, we can protect people. But when I asked her who protects the children, she gave me a very winding road answer that said nothing. She wasn't interested in protecting children. Actually, I think they are interested in it, but they're more interested in profit and making money. And so what they do is they basically give our children a steady stream of doubt, insecurity, and a belief that they're not what they should be, because they're shown images of what they should look like, how they should dress, what they should be doing. And that steady stream damages an entire generation. We're beginning to see the effects of that. This bill may not be perfect, and it certainly isn't going to content. We're not trying to stop content. We're simply saying, look, we know the federal government says if you're under age 12, we want some controls around this. We know this. Federal government's already passed laws on this. We're simply saying, look, we want to fill in the rest of this. And why don't we address 16, 17-year-olds? Because the Supreme Court has said, look, 17-year-olds have a different First Amendment right than than other people do, than other children do. So we have to be very careful how we balance this bill.
Senator from Greenville, Senator Corbin, what purpose do you rise?
Senator Yield for a quick, friendly question.
I will. Senator Yield for question. Senator Yield for question.
Senator, I was listening with interest at the total disregard by Meta and others, seemingly, to protect our children. And yet I think that they want us to give them taxpayer money to come set up their data centers in South Carolina. Senator, did you know that's laughable?
And Senator, I think it is laughable that we will somehow place our parental rights and controls in the hands of big social media companies. I agree with you 100% there, Senator. We should not be acquiescing the things we do as parents, the controls we have, the ideals and the beliefs we're going to share with our children. We're giving it over to Meta, Google, Facebook, Instagram, you name it. This never-ending scroll. It was so interesting in the committee. They talked about how you don't have to do anything. It just constantly comes at you, and it never ends. And the child can sit there for hours just simply moving a finger, and there's no stopping that. There's no end to that. It's just wrong. And today we have a chance to send a message. Is this going to become permanent law? We're going to get sued. You know this, I know this, we all know this. But I said this at I think the senator from Dorchester asked, are you going to sue us? Are you going to sue us? And she said, well, I have to leave that to the companies. They'll have to make that decision. Of course they're going to sue us. But if standing up for our children and saying this is fundamentally wrong, we need to change this, that's worth getting sued over. There are things that aren't worth getting sued over. This is worth getting sued over. This is worth filing a bill, passing a bill once a week to get sued over. Let's figure out how we protect our children as it interacts with the First Amendment, right? Because that's what this is about, the freedom of speech. So at some point, the courts are going to tell us this is the proper balance. And I'm hoping that it's on a bill like Shazam. I'm hoping it's on a bill that South Carolina has produced. I'm hoping that we stand up.
Senator from Charleston, Senator Lieber, what purpose do you rise?
For a question.
I will.
Senator Hill for question. Senator Hills for question.
I'm grateful for what you're doing right here. Do you know that I have the same frustration that you're sharing with the body right now when interacting with these folks from Meta and Google and all these other large companies, when you try to have a conversation about our kids and you get this long speech that's actually going nowhere? You know I share that frustration.
Senator, I think you're one of the leaders on this issue in the Senate, and I've appreciated your efforts, and I know that you share the frustration that many of us do, that these companies simply don't care about our children.
Yeah, I've got a couple of other bills that are similar in line with this, and this Shazam bill is really good. And when you go to committees, you know that oftentimes you're able to work with the retail industry, you're able to work with the banking industry and the game industry, and you're able to make them happy, all these other stakeholders. But when it comes to dealing with Meta and Google and all these big things, you just can't get anywhere with them, can you?
Well, Senator, you can't negotiate with someone who has no interest in negotiating and feels like they have all the power because they have all the money and they have all the lawyers and they're willing to fight us at every level.
And that's really where it boils down to, is they have this unending train of attorneys, an unending pack of cash stored away that they can give to these attorneys and just fight us forever and ever on this. And when you come up with reasonable, narrow-scoped, simple light touches, guardrails that have passed probably in other states, the only people that end up giving you the most grief and want to kill your bill are the ones that are the bad actors.
I agree with you, Senator.
You get down to it, you've got this bill that you've worked on, and you think, well, this is going to go somewhere, and the only people that object to it are indeed the bad actors that are harming our children.
The only objections to Shazam came from it came from Meta, Google, came from the exact people we think don't have a problem
And
with
a lot of times, these chatbots and these other, digital mechanisms and platforms, a lot of times, you have a kid go on there, for instance, and say, I'm really having a bad day. My mom and dad are really mad at me. There are examples of that, of these platforms and these chatbots saying, well, you know what, you're right. Let me show you how to murder your parents.
And Senator, I think that my hope is, I know that you have a chatbot bill. My hope is that next year we can give that further study and begin the advancement of that bill as well.
Yeah, we've got to start taking this seriously because the federal government's not doing it.
No one's coming to rescue our children except us. Right. I agree with that 100%.
They're so tied up with other things and arguing with each other about stuff, they can't even produce a single product on this. And South Carolina should lead the way. Maybe we become the blueprint for what they eventually take up, correct?
Well, this is step one of many steps. Yes, sir,
It's a very
Senator.
light touch, and I appreciate your advocation on this. Thank you, sir.
Senator.
Senator from Greenville, Senator Elliott, what purpose do you rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. I asked if the senator would yield for a few questions.
Senator Hill for questions. Senator Hills for questions.
Thank you. Senator, doesn't this, and it only applies to social media platforms that generate over $1 billion in ad revenue?
It is. We're not getting Fred and Ethel, who are trying to start up little something on the side. No, this is big social media companies who know exactly what they're doing to our children.
And doesn't it put parents in charge, making the fundamental decisions about what's good for their children?
It does. In fact, it empowers parents to make those decisions through a series of being able to make determinations on what types of content, how long those types of things, not content, excuse me, but how long they're going to be involved in it, and that process of registering their child who they know is a minor.
Yeah. And is it requiring the social media companies to do anything else? Is it requiring them to do anything other than what they are already doing? I mean, don't they already have the information to determine the child's age?
You know, Senator, that was the funny part of all the testimony we took, was she said, we know how old they are. And I said, well, if you know how old they are you 80% accurate? Are you 90% accurate? And she would never say, would constantly came back to we have the data and the algorithms. We know how old you are. And if you know how old they are, and you continue to disregard that you're doing this to 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds, then we've got to move forward. We have to step into that gap and fix it.
And there's already a process under federal law that requires age verification, as you stated, for 12
There
and
is.
under.
There
This
is,
raises it to under 16.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I'll just tell you very briefly what this amendment does. One of the things that this said was that the parents had to consent, but the companies had to give them, talk about a password. Passwords can be very narrowly defined. So I'm simply changing it to the provisioning and delivery to the parent of an account visibility dashboard and requisite account permissions. What this does is it broadens that definition and gives parents, again, greater flexibility. It gives them access to the information. It requires that these social media companies do more than just give the parents a separate password. I have to give you a dashboard. I have to give you the ability to see what your child is doing. That's the whole point of this legislation. It's the whole point of us protecting our children.
Senator from Anderson, Senator Cash, what purpose do you rise, sir?
See if the senator would yield for a question.
I will.
Senator yields for question.
Senator, this is going to tie back into a question I had yesterday when we were marking out minors and put it in child. My understanding yesterday that child meant 16 and under. I'm looking at this and it says child means under 16. So which is it, and is there a reason why it couldn't be 16 and under? I mean, whatever court said you can do this age and not this age, how do we get to this definition?
So the United States Supreme Court, on ruling on these types of issues, have specifically said that 17-year-olds have greater First Amendment rights than minors have. Not 18-year-olds, 17-year-olds specifically have. They have certain First Amendment rights. Not as great as an 18-year-old, but it's consequential. So what we're trying to do is take into account that the courts have already said 17-year-olds have it. We probably think that 16-year-olds have maybe one step below that. So we're trying to tailor a law to be very narrow and specific to get to that. Federal government covers everybody under 12. We're trying to get to that 13, 14, 15 age group. And that teenager in middle school who's just sitting there for hours looking at Instagram. We're trying to get to cover them, Senator, and while also not running afoul of the Supreme Court and some of their rulings on the First Amendment.
So we're guessing that they might find you can't protect a 16-year-old. I mean, that's what I hear you saying is they've said something about 17-year-olds. We're guessing if we say 16 and under, they might say something about that, so we're just going to drop it down another year. Is that
Senator,
what I'm hearing?
When you play in the constitutional sandbox where the Supreme Court hasn't made a final decision and really haven't given us the guidance we need, you are always guessing. And what you're trying to do is set parameters around it so that the court will adopt a standard that you can then build on. We're hoping that this becomes the new floor that then all other legislatures and our legislation going forward can build on.
Well, I understand, and I'm not trying to disagree with you, but yesterday it was 16 and under, but I'm looking at the definition, it's really under 16.
You're correct. You're correct, Senator.
Thank you.
Senator from Charleston, Senator Campson, what purpose do you rise?
Senator, yield for question.
I will.
Senator yields for question.
Senator, were you aware that I learned this in the context of drafting and actually getting past the Conservation Education Act that we passed last session? In the context of doing some research on that, I learned this metric that every parent, everyone, not just parents in the country, should be alarmed at. And that metric was the average fourth grader spends 7 hours a day looking at a screen and 7 minutes a day outside.
Wow. I did not know that. That is a terrible statistic.
That is alarming. And I think that metric certainly points to the need for something like this. And we need to take control of our own destiny in South Carolina and not leave it up to Google and Facebook at all.
Senator, I couldn't agree with that sentiment more. I'm going to move for adoption.
Question is the adoption of the amendment. All those in favor would say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. Senator from Charleston, Senator Lieber, what purpose do you rise?
I have an amendment that the staff are drafting right now. Is that possibly ready, or?
We have an additional amendment that's not yours. So we're going to the next amendment. Reading clerk will publish the next amendment.
Amendment number 3 is by Senator Ott. Amends the bill, Section 2, strike Section 395910, item 13B and C, and inserts.
Senator from Calhoun, what purpose do you rise, sir?
To explain the amendment.
You're recognized on your amendment. Senator from Calhoun, Senator Ott.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, I guess to be able to explain the amendment, I need to start with explaining kind of my thoughts. And I sat here and I listened to all of the explanation of the previous amendment. I sat there and listened to everyone that was lining up, to talk about why it was great and why we have to pass that. I even heard a quote that said, "No one is coming to rescue our children but us." Who is us? Is that the government? Are we ceding all responsibility of our children to the government? The people in this room, I don't think we are, because that's certainly not what I hear continuously being pumped out by a lot of the folks that are in this room. And I certainly haven't been taught that as I was brought up and I was raised. Again, I understand that it's very affirming and it's very popular when we talk about how we're going to be always saving our kids. And, I've heard that rhetoric when I've listened to the debates over libraries in the state of South Carolina and how we've got to remove these books because, our libraries, our public libraries are indoctrinating our children. And we have to save them. I've listened to that argument over and over and over. So, I understand that it's very popular to take those positions, and I understand that it's very unpopular to even say anything at all that may even have the appearance of pushing back on that. And I'm not pushing back on saving our kids. I've got 2 boys. So I'm not pushing back on that, but I also just, again, think it's very important sometimes that we don't get carried away and that we don't lose sight of some things that I think are very important. And that is, we all have responsibilities, not just elected officials, but parents. I do have huge concerns. I have seen the increase, right, I'll see 1 or 2 year olds that'll have a phone in their hands, right? Because I think it's almost like a babysitter sometimes. Somebody, might not want to hear a 1 or 2 year old cry, so they put a phone in their hands. And so we're talking about 14, 15, 16-year-olds. And I mean, I think it starts a lot sooner than that, right? Where they start getting addicted, if that's what we're going to be talking about, to technology. We're sending iPads and laptops now home with the youngest of the young. And we're teaching them off of technology. And most everyone agrees that technology can be good, but it can be taken advantage of. And so I'm not, again, you know, it's always hard to try to articulate these nuances here, because I'm not opposed to the bill. I want guardrails. But again, you know, I guess sometimes I just get a little frustrated from some of the rhetoric, you know, like, how dare somebody stand up and ask questions? How can I not stand up and ask questions on any piece of legislation? You know, and that's why I have an amendment here, because I think it's incumbent upon us to continue to try to make legislation better. I mean, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, we debated hemp, THC hemp in this body for quite some time, right? We don't even have an age restriction on THC right now when it comes to hemp. We weren't even able to agree on that. So right now, legally, if someone that owns a convenience store wants to sell a 60 milligram of THC to a 14-year-old, they can do that. Where's the outrage there? Kratom was another issue.
Senator from York, Senator Johnson, what purpose do you ask?
Will the senator yield for questions?
After I explain the amendment, thank you.
Okay. Senator refuses to yield at this point.
So this is not about whether or not I agree with the legislation or not. This is just taking a brief moment in time to always remind, I think, the body that it's a process that I'm very proud of. This, if I'm not mistaken, didn't go through the normal process. This wasn't on my radar. I'm not exactly sure that it was debated in a committee, but I know that all of a sudden it was here and brought before us, and that's all fine and good. But it just seems to me that if it's that important, if we have to have it, why are we sitting here on the last day of session trying to make sure that it gets passed, ladies and gentlemen? So again, I could go on, and you know, and I'm sure words will be twisted. I'm sure things will be taken out of context, and I don't care about the kids. And I'm willing to let them just be completely vulnerable to the big bad evils of social media and AI. But I was having a conversation with someone a little while ago, and they were telling me, you know, I take the phone from my grandchildren every single night, and I put it beside my bed. That's one way to limit the amount of use. And I think we just need to continuously tell that story. Actually, I mean, and look, the author of this bill is my friend. And I'm going to vote for this legislation. Somebody asked me, I thought you were putting your name on it. I'm not objecting to the bill. I mean, I hate that that's where we are right now, where like, if you even question something, that you must automatically be against it and are going to try and kill it. That's not the case. So I'm going to continue to move forward with it, but I just think it's very important. You know, I do want to just put out there, we can't pass bills and we can't pass legislation and then tell parents that you have nothing to worry about anymore. That's sometimes the message that you're sending, is now we've passed this miracle bill and they're going to limit the amount of time that a child can be on the internet. So you don't, guess what? Your responsibility is even less than it was before, because we fixed it for you. No, we didn't. There is always going to be those big bad companies, as I heard them described, that is going to try to monetize. They're going to try to take advantage. They're going to try to profit off of the backs of our kids. It's been going on since the beginning of time. You name whatever it is out there, they're going to market to kids. Yes, and so we have a responsibility to try to put good guardrails around it. But we don't need to just haphazardly move forward and say, well, this must be it, so we're going to pass it. It takes time. So this amendment, again, is speaking specifically to one of the exceptions, which is what we're not going to be talking about in the bill, and so it would add subsection D, and say that an online service, an application, a website where the primary purpose is enabling users to seek or provide support with technical assistance, developer resources, or educational resources related to the product, services, or developer tools offered by the operating entity. I didn't come up with that. You know, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm a lawyer or that I was smart enough. What I'm being told is that technical support is a big deal to a lot of platforms, and that, you know, they don't want being able to provide support, or for support or questions to be asked and sought out would not be able to be hindered by this legislation. So I put it before you as something to consider. There's probably a lot of other places in here, as my good friend, Senator from York, was talking about, is it the perfect bill? No, no bill is perfect, and we agree on that. I just hope everyone in here has read it, and that we've all looked to try to figure out where we can make improvements on it through the process that we have before us. I'm happy to answer any questions, Mr. President.
Senator from York, Senator Johnson, what purpose do you rise?
To yield for a question?
Yes, sir.
Senator, yields for question.
Senator, will you agree with me that the United States Supreme Court has struck down bills dealing with social media companies on First Amendment grounds because they dealt with content?
Yes, sir.
And that the fight on, would you also agree with me that the fight over content makes a bill significantly harder to pass constitutional scrutiny because of that?
Yeah, you know, that's interesting too, because if you look back over time, I'm old enough to remember, somebody will probably have to help me, where that first legal lawsuit came out over a rap song, and whether or not it was going to be able to be distributed amongst everyone, who was going to be able to go out and buy it, and everyone lost their heads and said, oh my goodness, we got to protect the kids. They can't listen to that, right? You know, I've grown up playing video games. You know, I started with Mario Brothers, right? I've seen those kind of go into a whole nother world. My point to you is, I think we might agree that this is a federal issue. We got kids in every single state, and we can do the very best that we can here in the state of South Carolina, but I hope that we'll have just as impassioned congressmen and women, not exactly who that might be on the horizon after today, or who might even be able to offer for that. But I believe that it's absolutely a federal issue that needs to be handled at the federal level to have some consistency across the 50 states.
Senator, I appreciate your response, because I think you just agreed with me, did you know,
Sure.
that content is a major issue, and that is what gets these bills struck down, and that your amendment is a content amendment. You're carving out content, therefore making this bill potentially easier for the Supreme Court to strike down, not reaching the merits on everything else, just purely on content, First Amendment grounds. Senator, I want to challenge the court. And Senator, did you know that I'd love the federal government to step into it? But waiting on Congress to do something, just not going to get it done. And when I said earlier that we need to protect, I mean we, the parent. We, the parents of South Carolina, need to protect our children. And part of that is, if you're a parent in this room, even if you're not a parent in this room, we need to protect our children. We all need to protect our children. And I don't believe the federal government, did you know, is going to do that, Senator. So I have grave concerns, and I get that, hey, this is a carve out and these things are important to certain platforms, but I am concerned that this is going to further erode our ability to get the U.S. Supreme Court to find this bill constitutional, because it's content-based. And the Supreme Court has been very, very strict on content, striking these bills.
Right.
But it's carving out, but you're introducing content to a non-content bill.
Yeah, we're agreeing. You're saying that the bill is not content related. That's all I was saying.
And I'm scared, Senator, that your amendment makes it content. But I appreciate your, look, we should debate the hard things here. And I appreciate, did you know that you're up there making an argument? And I appreciate your argument today. Thank you, Senator.
No, and I agree, and I appreciate that. I appreciate you pointing it out. You know, again, I don't want to do anything that is going to prohibit, obviously, everyone from being able to get what they need to get, whether it's in a school or, you know, in whatever arena, from getting the type of technical support that they need. And there were concerns that this could prohibit that. So that's why it was put up. I understand the argument, and I appreciate the argument.
Senator from Berkeley, Senator Fernandez, then I'll work my way around.
What
purpose do you ask?
Wonder if the senator would yield for a few questions?
Yes, sir.
Senator, you have a question. Senator, you have a question.
You know, Senator, did you know growing up that the way my mother protected me as a child is with a switch off the tree? Did you know that?
I didn't, but I can imagine. I understand.
It shaped me who I am today. And now, as an adult, did you know that my fear is that I'm going to have to live under the assumption that every sound I make and every moment of my life is going to be scrutinized? Did you know that's a fear of mine?
I hear you.
Do you know whose words those are?
You're about to tell me.
George Orwell. I am afraid of a government in the interest of good intent of protecting us from ourselves is going to turn into an agency of thought police. Did you know that's my fear?
I believe that that could be your fear. I am very hesitant to agree with you, Senator. Just a note of levity there.
Did you know that I was completely appalled that I'm sitting here agreeing with what Senator Ott is saying. But did you know that I am grateful as a parent and as your colleague for your perspective on this?
Well, I appreciate that. I really do. And again, it's not to diminish anyone else's. And I'm not trying to take away, and I did, as my good friend, you know, the senator from Sumter yesterday, who I share Calhoun proudly with, I heard every word that you said, and I took it in. And so, you know, again, it's not about necessarily right or wrong. I'm not sitting up here trying to say that I'm right. I just think that a lot of times we get ourselves ginned up over particular issues, and we kind of whip ourselves into a frenzy. And listen, our kids are worth getting whipped into a frenzy about, right? So again, I'm trying to be very careful that nothing can be misconstrued here. They are certainly worth that. But I just don't want to push or pull too much in one direction that we say, nothing to see over there anymore. It's going to be something else, whether it's this social media platform or whether it's some type of drink or some type of food or some type of drug. It's going to be something else that someone is going to try to put out there that our kids, they are going to try to get our kids to spend their money or our money, right, on. And again, we're not going to be able to change that, I don't think. And if we go too far away from what you were describing earlier, and we completely, you know, again, I don't think we'll ever ignore it, but if we get too comfortable with there being these types of laws and protections in place, then I think it could end up actually having the exact opposite effect of what we're trying to accomplish.
Senator from Sumter, what purpose do you rise?
See if the senator yield for a couple questions.
Of course.
Senator, you have a question.
I appreciate that. First, Senator, I want to thank you so much for taking this on. I know your heart, and just as a sort of a short recap of yesterday, I hope I never implied in any way that you didn't care greatly for children. I mean, you express that every single day. I would never question your care for South Carolinian, young South Carolinians and young Americans, and so in their futures. So,
and I appreciated your perspective yesterday.
Absolutely. Well, you prove it every day, and that this body proves that. And so we can disagree on content of the matter. We can disagree on process. I mean, we can disagree on a lot of things, but I do not disagree that your heart is exactly where it needs to be. So, but my questions, Senator, just a couple clarifying questions. So, on your amendment, just for a guy who reads at 8th grade level, could you tell me if your amendment allows social media companies to avoid asking users for their age while inquiring for some sort of technical support?
Right. So I think there's, again, social media, right? Platforms, if that's the terminology that we're going to use, I think that they are not always one and the same. And I think, like, we'll use Apple as an example, right? May have different applications, but one of those may be technical support. And so, yes, what this was attempting to do, if you go back up into section 2, it's saying what is not going to be one of these types of applications that are going to be brought under this legislation.
Okay,
And so there was an A, B, C, and this would be adding D, which was the specific use of an application that is providing, you know, the technical support, and you can read it yourself.
And I agree. I think, you know, obviously they have their own processes. They don't want to gum it up any more than they already have to comply with the regulation. I totally get that. But that's on their interest, you know, not necessarily the interest of competing interests. That said, so this is just narrowly tailored towards technical assistance. Is that accurate? So this
it was certainly an attempt to be.
Okay.
It was certainly an attempt to be.
My question, my next question is, and as we discussed yesterday, the accuracy of age estimation by these companies. And so that's where my consternation, my issue lies, is that it's no way can we say 100%. We're never going to get to 100%. Right? There's always going to be a market out there to bypass the system. I mean, you just eloquently stated that whenever we put the hard bans on everything, there is usually, correct me if I'm wrong, and I can't think of an example otherwise, but you will always have a black market that will supply that demand. I think that's just a universal truth. That said, I just want to make sure that if there is a tool that we can employ or deploy that these companies can use to ensure greater accuracy in age estimation, I think we should consider that. So that's my only really concern with your amendment, and I do appreciate your attempt.
The only thing I would point out there is we might be hurting ourselves by preventing them from doing this type of stuff. Maybe that builds and helps with the accuracy of the age verification.
Point well stipulated, Senator. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Pending question is the adoption of the amendment. Senator from York, Senator Johnson, what purpose do you raise?
Move to table.
Motion is to table the amendment. All those in favor of tabling the amendment would say aye. Aye. Opposed, no? No. Ayes have it. The amendment is tabled. We have an additional amendment. The reading clerk will publish the next amendment.
Next amendment is number 4 by Senator Lieber. Amends the bill, adds appropriate numbered section to read.
Senator from Charleston, Senator Lieber, what purpose do you raise, sir?
Unanimous consent request.
State your request.
Withdraw the amendment.
Is there objection to the unanimous consent request by the senator from Charleston, Senator Lieber, to withdraw his amendment? Hearing no objection, so ordered. No further amendments. Senator from York, Senator Clymer, what purpose do you raise?
Wish to be heard briefly on the bill.
Recognize. Senator from York, Senator Clymer.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm informed that I have a 2-minute clock running, so I will be very brief. And one of the things I kind of enjoy about the debates we've had in here over the last couple of years is how many times I get to hear a very skilled attorney propose hypothetical this and hypothetical that, and a lot of times our debates are exchanges of hypotheticals. So I'm going to offer a different hypothetical that to me illuminates the subject matter before us. Think about the principle that we've been discussing, the legislation we've been discussing, and apply it in a different context. Apply it offline. Apply it not on a phone, not on a laptop, but think about how you would feel if there were a business that lured and then surveilled children on a playground. Think about that. Surveilled their every word, every movement, every interaction, and then used the data collected from the playground to target ads, to target new content, to further entrench that child into an addiction of that playground. That is the core of what we're talking about here. None of us, not a single one of us, would tolerate that circumstance that I've just articulated. Not one of us. We wouldn't tolerate it on a playground. We wouldn't tolerate it at school. We wouldn't tolerate it anywhere. We shouldn't tolerate it in a phone. We shouldn't tolerate it in a laptop. And I hope you'll join me, senators, in supporting this legislation.
Senator from Colleton, what purpose do you have?
The senator would yield for a quick question.
It has to be very brief.
Senator yields for a quick question.
Very brief.
Senator, I was on the subcommittee, and I agree with what the bill and the amendments are trying to accomplish. In your capacity, though, going along with what you've said and what was presented earlier by a senator from York, we will expect, meaning the state of South Carolina, will expect to be sued as a result of this legislation. And am I correct that you also serve on the Finance Constitutional Committee?
I do.
With me? And that's why I wanted to ask you this question. In your capacity on that committee, I believe the Attorney General appeared before our committee and talked about the $20 million is what I remember, $20 million in expenditures the state of South Carolina has had to expend or allot for lawsuits that we have to get in. Are we, in essence, since what we've heard, buying another lawsuit?
Senator, I'll say, if you looked at our budget in the form of a pie chart, you would find more than half of it is allocated to the welfare of children. And I would submit to you that on questions of the allocation of public funds,
is that a yes?
This is a very worthy expenditure of public funds to protect
our children. But this is a federal issue, too.
To protect our children. Yeah.
But this is a federal. I just don't want us to waste state funds that should actually go to children, go to those breakfasts, go to the lunch, and things like that, on a lawsuit where basically the Attorney General appoints lawyers from in-state and out-of-state and spend millions and millions of dollars when this is going to be pre-upped by a federal issue.
I understand that. Thank you, Senator.
That's all.
Question is third reading of H 4591. Roll call is required. Clerk will please ring the bell. The reading clerk will call the roll of the Senate on third reading of H 4591.
Mr. Adams. Aye. Mr. Alexander. Aye. Mr. Allen. Not voting, Mr. Bennett. Aye. Mr. Blackman. Aye. Mr. Bright. Not voting, Mr. Campson. Votes aye. Mr. Cash. Aye. Mr. Chaplin. Aye. Mr. Clymer. Aye. Mr. Corbin. Aye. Mr. Cromer. Not voting, Mr. Davis. Aye. Mrs. Devine. Votes aye. Mr. Elliott. Aye. Mr. Fernandez. Votes no. Mr. Gambrell. Aye. Mr. Garrett. Aye. Mr. Goldfinch. Mr. Goldfinch. Not voting, Mr. Graham. Aye. Mr. Grooms. Aye. Mr. Hembry. Aye. Mr. Hutto. Aye. Mr. Jackson. Aye. Mr. Johnson. Aye. Mr. Kennedy has leave. Mr. Kimbrell. Aye. Mr. Lieber. Aye. Mr. Martin. Aye. Mr. Massey. Aye. Mrs. Matthews. Mrs. Matthews not voting. Mr. Ott votes aye. Mr. Peeler. Aye. Mr. Rankin. Aye. Mr. Rickenbaugh. Aye. Mr. Rice. Aye. Mr. Sabb. Mr. Sabb not voting. Mr. Stubbs votes aye. Mr. Sutton. Aye. Mr. Tedder. Mr. Tedder not voting. Mr. Turner. Aye. Mr. Verdon. Aye. Mr. Walker. Aye. Mr. Williams. Aye. Mr. Young. Aye. Mr. Zell votes aye.
Have all senators voted? Senator Bright votes aye. Senator Matthews votes aye. Senator Allen votes aye. Senator Sabb votes aye. Senator Tedder votes aye. Further members wishing to record your vote? Further members wishing to record your vote? Final call. Polls are closed. Clerk, will please tabulate. By a vote of 42 to 1, the bill receives a third reading of the Senate. We continue in third reading uncontested. H 5018. The reading clerk will please read.
This is a bill amending the code relating to annual salaries of certain state officers so as to provide that salaries of the governor and lieutenant governor must be based on recommendations by the agency head salary commission.
Question is third reading of H 5018. Roll call is required. Reading clerk will, the clerk will ring the bell. The reading clerk will call the roll of the Senate on third reading of H 5018, page 9.
Mr. Adams. Not voting, Mr. Alexander. Aye. Mr. Allen. Aye. Mr. Bennett. Aye. Mr. Blackman. Aye. Mr. Bright. Not voting, Mr. Campson. Aye. Mr. Cash. Aye. Mr. Chaplin. Aye. Mr. Clymer. Aye. Mr. Corbin. Aye. Mr. Cromer. Not voting, Mr. Davis. Aye. Mrs. Devine. Votes aye. Mr. Elliott. Not voting, Mr. Fernandez. Aye. Mr. Gambrell. Mr. Gambrell votes aye. Mr. Garrett. Aye. Mr. Goldfinch. Not voting, Mr. Graham. Aye. Mr. Grooms. Aye. Mr. Hembry. Aye. Mr. Hutto. Aye. Mr. Jackson. Aye. Mr. Johnson. Aye. Mr. Kennedy. Has leave. Mr. Kimbrell. Aye. Mr. Lieber. Mr. Lieber not voting. Mr. Martin. Aye. Mr. Massey. Aye. Mrs. Matthews. Aye. Mr. Ott. Aye. Mr. Peeler. Mr. Peeler not voting. Mr. Rankin. Mr. Rankin votes aye. Mr. Rickenbaugh. Not voting. Mr. Rice votes aye. Mr. Sutton. Aye. Mr. Tedder. Aye. Mr. Turner. Aye. Mr. Verdon. Aye. Mr. Walker. Aye. Mr. Williams votes aye. Mr. Young, aye. Mr. Zell, aye.
Have all senators voted? Senator Elliott votes aye. Senator Lieber votes aye. Senator Cromer votes aye. Senator Adams votes aye. Senator from Anderson, Senator Gamble, what purpose do you rise?
For leave for the senator from Georgetown for the day.
Senator Goldfinch has leave for the day without objection. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Senator Bright votes no. Further members wishing to record your vote. Senator Peeler votes aye. Further members wishing to record your vote. Final call. Polls will close. Clerk will tabulate. By a vote of 42-1, H5018 receives a third reading of the Senate. Senator from Kershaw, what purpose do you rise, sir?
Unanimous consent request.
State your request.
To go back to page 5, H5168, in the statewide third reading. This was in reference to the state song.
Is there objection to returning in third reading, uncontested, H5168 on page 5? Is there objection? Hearing no objection, so ordered. Clerk will please read.
This is a bill which amends the code by adding a section so as to designate Carolina When I Die by Patrick Davis as an official state song.
Question is, third reading of H5168. All in favor would say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senator from Edgefield, what purpose do you rise?
Have we completed the uncontested statewide third reading calendar?
We have finished the third reading.
Mr. President, I ask to be recognized for an introduction.
You're recognized for the purposes of introduction. Senator from Edgefield for the purposes of introduction.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, we're fortunate today to be joined by some representatives from McCormick Middle School and the McCormick County School District. If y'all will, please stand for us. Mr. President, just recently the EOC identified McCormick Middle School as South Carolina's first public middle school to receive the prestigious Beating the Odds designation. And in addition, McCormick Middle School recently earned an excellent school rating, and they achieved the highest academic growth of all traditional middle schools in the state. We're here this morning, and we have with us Superintendent Dr. Jamie Hembry, and also the principal of McCormick Middle School, Dr. Skip Hopkins, and the assistant principal, Mr. Cameron Oswald. So, Mr. President, we're very proud of the progress that's being made in McCormick. It's one of the smallest counties in the state, but they're doing some really great things with some good leadership. So, and some great students who are dedicated to progress. Mr. President, would you please join me in welcoming these fine servants from McCormick County?
You better believe it. Welcome to the State Senate. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you for the difference you're making back in McCormick County. We appreciate your service. Thank you. Thank you, Senator from Greenville. Senator Corbin, what purpose do you rise?
For introduction.
You're recognized, sir, for introduction.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from Greenville, Senator Corbin.
Fellow senators, I was born in the winter of '65, which means I grew up in the '70s, which means I grew up watching the Andy Griffith Show and loved the Andy Griffith Show. And I have said from day one and for many years, if there was ever a Mayberry in South Carolina, it was Landrum, South Carolina, which is proudly anchored in District 5, which is the district that I serve. And ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I am proud to have down here with us today the Landrum High School girls basketball team. And when I call your name, if you would stand up, please. Hannah Tidings, Delaney Caldwell, Kylie Fortner, Cameron Hayrow, Hazel Kane, Hadley Robinson, Kennedy Gardner, Sullivan Price, Emalyn Bright, Avery Caldwell, Lena Shimbra, and Maddie Clayton. Also, if Coach Kaylee Koenig would stand. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great honor that I recognize the Landrum High School girls basketball team for winning the 2026 Class AA State Championship. The road to that state championship has been defined by resilience, discipline, and an unwavering belief in one another. And Landrum High School girls basketball team has embodied every one of those qualities. Game after game, this team has risen to the challenge, turning obstacles into opportunities and pressure into performance. Your dedication and commitment to the hard work has proven to be a winning combination for a truly remarkable season. It is with honor to have you, and my honor to have you here at the State House, and it's my honor to have you represent us here in Columbia. We wish you the best and continued success. Please stand. Well, I've already had you stand. So I have to write this out. I'm old. I don't need a second on that. But I remember many years ago when my brother was on the football team in high school and won their championship. That is a remarkable achievement. This is something that you will remember as long as you live. It is an honor and something you worked hard for and something that you deserve recognition for. So thank you so much for coming down here today. And I would like for the
reading clerk to publish the title of the resolution. The reading clerk will please publish.
This is a Senate resolution to recognize and honor the Landrum High School girls basketball team, coaches, and school officials for a stellar season, and to congratulate them on winning the 2026 South Carolina Class AA State Championship title.
The resolution has been unanimously adopted by the Senate. The senator from Greenville, Senator Corbin.
Thank you. And Mr. President and fellow senators, if you would stand and let's congratulate them. I thank you so much for the opportunity to share in this moment with you.
Thank you. Congratulations to y'all. Great job. And we're honored to have you visiting the Senate today.
And if you would meet me in the little antechamber down here, I'd like to get some pictures real quick, if you could. Thank you.
Senator from Edgefield, what purpose do you rise?
President, I move to vary the order of the day and proceed to special orders.
Motion is to vary the order of the day. All those in favor and proceed to special orders. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. The order of the day is varied. We'll go to special orders. First up, page 2, 855-5538. Reading clerk will please read.
This is a bill enacting the Guaranteed Banking Act.
Question is, third Senator from Orangeburg, what purpose do you rise? Be heard. You recognize on the special order.
Members, this is one of the few times that I've read a bill that I really can't say that I fully understand. It's not clear to me how we in South Carolina can only target national banks and believe that they're going to listen to us. So we just had the debate about big companies thumbing their nose at us, and here we've got out-of-state banks that are going to look at a law that we passed in South Carolina, and they're going to just put it on the shelf because it really doesn't apply to them. I just don't understand how it's going to work, because if you're headquartered in Charlotte or Chicago or New York, you're going to make decisions from your federal bank regardless of what state law is. So you've got a branch in South Carolina. I'm not sure how this is ever going to work. But I'll say this, and I'll sit down. We have passed futile bills before, and we can do it again.
Question is, third reading of H 5538. All those in favor would say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is adopted. We go further on special orders to H 4042. The reading clerk will please read.
The bill which adds a section to the code so as to authorize the over-the-counter sale of ivermectin tablets.
Question is, third reading of the bill, H 4042. All those in favor would say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. H 4042 is adopted. Senator from Edgefield, what purpose do you raise?
I move to vary the order of the day and return to the morning hour.
Motion is to vary the order of the day and return to the morning hour. All those in favor would say aye. Opposed, no. Back to the box. All ayes have it. We'll return to the box. Reading clerk will read.
House is returned to the Senate with amendments. That's 922, bill by Senators Massey, Alexander, and others. It amends the code relating to the filling of vacancies when the Senate is not in session so as to provide when the governor may make an interim appointment.
Senator from Edgefield, what purpose do you raise?
Mr. President, this is the interim appointments bill that we've talked about a good bit over here. The House made some changes that I think are probably not beneficial. I would just ask unanimous consent that we non-concur. No, I'm sorry, we have an amendment, I believe.
We have an amendment on
I ask
the
unanimous consent to take that amendment up.
Is there objection to taking up the amendment? Senator from Colleton, what purpose do you raise?
If the senator could explain what changes the House
So
proposed.
the House removed the entire interim appointment section of the bill, and they also added a different bill on top of it, the medical malpractice bill. So I was going to propose an amendment to go back to the Senate version, and then if necessary, go to conference with it. Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent to take up the bill and the amendment.
Is there objection to the unanimous consent request? Senator from Williamsburg, what purpose do you raise?
Terrell, let's see whether or not Senator Yield.
Senator Yield. Senator
Of course.
Yield. Senator Yields.
Senator, I want to make sure I understand where we would land on this. So there's a bill before us that has an amendment on it that essentially attaches the bill that we've referred to as medical malpractice on top of it, right?
It is what is commonly known as a bobtail.
All right, and so we would then, if what you've suggested becomes the action of the Senate, we would take that bobtail off, and then so we'd have a bobtailless bill before us, right?
We would just put it back to the Senate version, send it back to the House. They can make a decision at that point as to whether they agree with that version, or if they decide to insist on their amendments, then we would end up in a conference scenario.
So then we would essentially be in a posture where we would be negotiating medical malpractice.
I think we negotiate the appointments bill.
But
that's in the House version, so that would be on the table for conference.
right, and so you know what troubles me about that would be that there have been conversations in this chamber relative to that, and I think it's fair to say that there's a sizable disagreement as to what that ought to look like, and that that's one of those issues that the entire body ought to weigh in, debate it as the Senate does in deliberate fashion, and then ultimately the body would then speak on it.
Well,
right?
Senator, I would say this. Because there is no medical malpractice version in the Senate language in the Senate version of this bill, it would be to accept or reject the House's version. Now, the President and I have not had a conversation about who might serve on a conference committee on this, but if I were to serve on it, my position would be that this is an appointments bill. That's what the bill should be about. And if it's stuck with a medical malpractice portion onto it, I would lose the appointments bill.
So, Senator, you know that I've got an appreciation for that position. I do believe that's where the Senate ought to land on it. And so I typically don't talk to the President about who he puts on conference committees, but I do believe that that position would represent where the conversations are, and so I've got an appreciation for that. Did you know?
Well, and plus, like you know, the Senate has historically cared about bobtails, and this one's an obvious one, and I wouldn't want to risk the constitutionality of the appointment stuff by putting something on there anyway. And as you very well know, I don't like the House version of the medical malpractice bill. So if we go to conference on this, then it would certainly be my hope that it's the appointments bill or it's nothing.
Reading clerk will publish the amendment.
Senator Alexander proposes the following amendment. It's a bill. It strikes all after the enacting words.
Mr. President.
Senator from Edgefield.
Mr. President, the President's amendment is just to reinsert the Senate language that the Senate adopted initially. I move adoption of that amendment.
Pending question is the adoption of the amendment. Senator from Greenwood, what purpose do you rise, sir?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
If we go along with this amendment, because of the issue of medical malpractice being such an important issue that has not been fully debated by us, what assurance will we have that issue will not be addressed one way or the other? That part, again, I agree with the idea of the constitutionality and staying within the bounds of that issue. But will these powers be full that they could go ahead and negotiate or do a medical malpractice portion of this bill as part of it?
I can't give advisory opinions, but
I was seeking a parliamentary statement as to what powers would be there to do it, not how it would turn out.
Okay. Senator so informed. Senator from Orangeburg.
Is that the only amendment on the desk?
It's the only amendment on the
If
desk.
we adopt this, it goes back automatically. No
Absolutely.
further debate. We don't have to vote on it. It just goes back. Thank you.
Pending question is the adoption of the amendment. Roll call is required on the amendment.